Happy Disability Pride Month, everyone. My name is Nico Meyering. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a white man with large dark glasses, blonde hair, and a blue graphic tee, seated in front of a green wall, and in the back is my kitchen. I'm here with Priya today. Priya, thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Okay, my name is Priya Ray. I'm a brown-skinned woman with dark brown hair. Um, I am wearing a purple, pink, I don't know what color this is, magenta-ish in the magenta world, t-shirt, a Disability Pride t-shirt that DIY Able has for sale if you want to buy it. But yeah, so I'm wearing that and I got a tie-dye headband on my hair and my background is the mountains of Asheville where I live.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much. Priya, what does disability pride mean to you?
Well, I feel the word pride means a lot of things, but for me, I was thinking about that a lot today, and I feel like, people that are disabled having equality to others is what gives us our pride
Yes.
because we go out into the world and we can't do what everybody else does, even though we're capable of doing it in a different way. We feel dejected and it feeds a lot into our pride, and that's what I feel like. I feel equality and pride are very related in that way.
What do you think full disability equality would look like?
Well, full disability, I mean, I don't know if minorities will ever have full equal rights,
Okay.
but because, I just think we're kind of wired in a certain way as humans, and it's just something we're always going to have to remind each other about. But in a perfect world, I think we would have every city in the world would have an infrastructure that thinks about people of all kinds of abilities, whether they're disabled or not, short, tall, elderly people, young people. So, curb cuts, sidewalks, just ways for people to get around that perhaps can't use a car or can't afford a car. Um, uh, Accommodations for employment, education, housing, um, just so we have these basic human rights that every other person has, so we can work, be employed, have a house to live in, eat, do these things that everybody else wants to do.
Small necessities, of course.
All
Thank you
necessities.
for your answer.
Yeah, no problem.
What are some lessons that being disabled has taught you?
Well, I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. So I had a spinal cord injury in 1999. So I don't even like to refer to people as non-disabled or disabled. I like to refer to people as less disabled and more disabled
Okay.
because in a sense, I feel we're all disabled somehow in this like image that some humans, I don't know who they are, have created this bar of what we should all be like. So in that sense, I think some people are less disabled. So I was less disabled. And then I had a spinal cord injury, which kept me from being able to walk and, other things in life. So I use a wheelchair full time. And I am Indian as well, from India. Well, I'm an Indian American. My parents are from India. I was born in America. So I'm Indian and I'm a woman. And, so I've always been in a minority in some sense, but I have to say it wasn't until I became disabled that I felt noticeably kept out of society. Like as a woman and an Indian brown skinned person, you have your obstacles, but in the end, people do allow you to enter into whatever it is, work, employment, social situations. But as a disabled person, I've really felt, I felt the sting of being a minority more than, and the, more than not being white and not being a man.
Can you give me some like examples of that? What has
Oh,
been keeping you?
oh my gosh. Yeah, I can give you tons of examples.
I would love
So
to hear them.
when you go to a restaurant, I'm going to start like public type stuff. When you go to a restaurant and they have a step and they don't understand that that's not accessible. And, for me, when I'm standing outside of a venue or I'm in a band, I also like to see music. So when I'm standing outside of a venue and I'm watching, or a restaurant or a business, and watching everybody go in, despite their color, race, gender, how they identify, LGBTQ or not, being able to enter and take part of a place, and I can't because I'm in a wheelchair, that makes me angry. It doesn't make me unproud of myself. It makes me angry that people are not recognizing that, they have to somehow create an accessibility. So then the second would be an infrastructure of a city. Like when I'm going through, riding around in my wheelchair in a city, if sidewalks have cracks that are hard for me to navigate around, or there are no curb cuts, or there's a curb cut on one side and not on the other side, or when a car parks in a little driveway type area that blocks the sidewalk, things like this. It just shows that society, government, and people aren't thinking like, oh, I should move my car up so the sidewalk can be used not only by disabled people, but by everyone, like they're inconveniencing everyone in that society. The sidewalks are there for for convenience for everybody to be able to get through a city safely. So yeah, when you see things like that, it like I said, it makes me angry. Angry. I don't feel like, oh, I'm going to hide away. I feel like I'm going to speak out and say, why is this happening? And then the third, they refer to things in models, like the medical model, the social
Yes.
model. So in the social model, um, I just feel like if you're having a show or a party at your house and you have a disabled friend, reach out to them. Even if you think maybe they can't be a part of it, you just assume, invite them anyway and let them tell you they can't be a part of it. Don't just like not invite them to something, because when they, and especially now with social media and everyone's posting pictures like, I went to such and such house, or I went to this party, or I went to this show, it makes you feel sad. And not just not, that doesn't only happen to disabled people, that happens to every single person. If they can't be a part of something, or let's say they had to work, or they had kids, or whatever the issue is, that they couldn't be part of it. But if it was because you're just disabled and that's why you couldn't be a part of something, or you didn't get invited to something, that's, I feel like that's a faux pas in our society, where we are excluding people without even the intention. Maybe it's not your intention, but that is what you're doing.
Valid. Thank you. So yes, barriers to access do create barriers to equality and involvement,
Yeah. Engaging, with people in
barriers
your,
to engagement as well.
and with and people in your community, and disabled people are part of your community.
That's true. Yes. Thank you so much for your answer.
Yeah, no
Uh,
problem.
um, what have you had to unlearn as a result of being disabled?
I've had to unlearn being angry.
Okay.
So, it's I do a lot of activism, and that while the anger does fuel what I do, when I try to talk to people, I try not to let the anger be what motivates me to talk to people. I try to talk to people by helping them understand in a way, because one thing I think all humans have in common, or not one thing, the things that all humans have in common are being born, being disabled, and dying. So I try to make people understand, like, hey, you know, you might not end up in a wheelchair, or I shouldn't say end up, you might not have to ever use a wheelchair like I do, but you will experience disability. And wouldn't we like to make our society more accessible for when that happens, not when not when it's actually happening, but for when it could happen. So I try to explain to people that disability is something you'll experience, and you want to create a society that's going to support you when that happens. You don't want to have to figure it out as it's happening.
That's very valid. Our relationship to our bodies is a huge part of what it means to be human, especially as that relationship changes throughout our life, as you say.
Oh yeah, and it will change because everybody ages, and
Everybody
as you
ages.
age, as you age, those disabilities will start coming upon you. And it may not be a wheelchair, but it will be pain getting up out of that chair and things like that, you know.
It's interesting that you said you had to unlearn anger, because a lot of times for this question, I get people who say they had to unlearn ableism, or they had to begin to disentangle their internalized ableism. But I think you hit on something which is particularly valid, which is that anger does have a role in navigating disabled life and even in disability advocacy, as you say.
Yeah, definitely. And as far as ableism, yeah, you know, I can't say I didn't have a version of internalized ableism. My mother was disabled, so
Yes.
um I think because I was raised by a woman, she had rheumatoid arthritis, so her disease was degenerative, and as she aged and I aged, it got worse. So I do think that's helped me a lot with how to explain things to people. And like, the terms like ableism and all this, they weren't really used as I was growing up
Okay.
with my mother that was disabled. So of course, as my family and I navigated through the world with my mother having arthritis, we had to help her so we could all take part in things. So I do think ableism is something that's just existed since the beginning of time. And to point out, I mean, I'm not against pointing out things that are ableist, but if we look at the world, we're going to see ableism in everything we do or see. And I think, what's the word I would use? I think like really focusing on only everything being ableist isn't really healthy, because it is going to be ableist, and the way we change it isn't necessarily accusing a person of being ableist, but explaining to them how they could possibly be doing something different. It's just creating a new future that didn't exist, a future that didn't exist before, because we didn't have the technology and the know how to do it. And as we progress as humans with technology, we're going to have more and more ways to untangle the ableist society that humans have created for themselves.
Thank you. That was a
Yeah,
very well thought out answer. I appreciate your perspective. I
yeah.
have been mainly skewing like my age range or younger with these interviews. So perspective from a different age range is really valuable. And I'm like
Yeah.
34 for reference.
Yeah, and I'm 54. So, oh my God, we're exactly 20 years apart.
Oh,
So, and was it 20 years or 30 years? Oh, I don't know. I didn't
it's
math
20.
wrong. It's 20. Okay, yeah. I'm like, oh my God, is it 20? Oh yeah, because you're 34, not 24. So, and that's another thing I talk about is we all learn from each other, disabled to less disabled, old to young. I have a strong belief that generations can teach each other things. And we shouldn't, old people are like, oh, those young people, they don't know anything. And younger people are like, oh, those old people, they don't know what they're talking about. But we all do, because we all have experience from what we've grown up with and what we're, where we, like for you, you probably feel more comfortable with a lot of technology that's available today, where people around my age aren't as comfortable, and so they kind of push it away. So I just feel like we can all learn from each other, from our experiences.
Thank you.
Yeah,
This
no
brings me
problem.
to my last planned question. What's one thing you want, to use your words, less disabled people to know about lives of people who might be a bit more disabled?
Um, I would love for less disabled people to figure out a way to include more disabled people, because when we all, like I said, as far as generational, we inform each other,
Mhm.
and more disabled people are going to be able to inform less disabled people about things, and the other way around too. And when we all like get together with different abilities, different races, different genders, different identities of gender and sexuality, we're going to create this world that where we feed off of each other's ideas and create like a future that could possibly help us all live about, with the environment, with what's going on with the environment and infrastructures of cities and all of these things. We're just going to create a bigger and better world once we decide to not push each other away because of our differences, but welcome each other because of our differences.
Encourage equity to encourage improvements. Thank
Yes,
you.
exactly. Yes, exactly. You're welcome. I'm so excited to talk to you. Thank you for having me, by the
Of
way.
course, Priya, where can people find you online? This is your chance to promote yourself.
Yay.
Yay.
Okay, so I have a nonprofit that I actually turned into a nonprofit this year. It's called DIY Abled, and I named it that because I'm in a band from a DIY community that I've been a part of for over 30 years. And the reason I love DIY communities is because we figure out how to do things, music, art, and all these things in spaces, let's just face it, like America was created, the infrastructure of America was created a long time before you and I were alive, and it's some of it is still here, and we've replaced some of it, but we're always going to find spaces that aren't accessible, that aren't like accessible not only for disabled people but for a lot of people to attend. So that's what DIY is. And I feel like when you're disabled, the DIY way of doing things comes into your life a lot, because when you're disabled and it's not there for you, you have to figure out how to be a part of the world. So the DIY, I just feel so fortunate that that was something I was already doing before I became more disabled, because it really helped me transition into becoming disabled, because when I couldn't be a part of something, I figured it out and I didn't focus on being upset about it and being, sad about it. So anyway, that's where the DIY comes from. And DIY Abled is my nonprofit, and it's to educate people about disability and accessibility and why accessibility is so important for everyone. And I have a YouTube channel. It's called DIY Abled Grassroots. And on there, I have some of my interviews I do with people called This Crypt Life, which is my podcast. And that is also available on other platforms, but also available on my YouTube channel. And then I have a Cryptstery, which is um, short little documentaries, like not more than 2 minutes, about a disabled person or something that's happened in the past with disabled people, because our history is really hidden. And once we start revealing these histories, that's when people start understanding why our rights are important. And then I also have a puppet show for kids and adults, where I talk to a yellow puppet, a yellow bear named Frankie, Frankie the pup bear. He's a golden bear, and he asks me questions about disability, and I explain it to him. So those are like, on the YouTube channel. And then this month, I also have, like, I was during the pandemic doing a lot of panels about disability, which I haven't had the time to do because the community, Asheville community's opened up a little, even though there is still a pandemic and we all still need to be cautious about washing our hands, wearing masks, trying to not shake hands and stuff, even though I have shook some hands in the last 6 months which I was very scared about. But anyway, so I was doing some online panels, which I haven't been doing as much, but I'm very excited because I helped curate. I curated a Disability Pride art show
Mhm.
that's up here at a gallery called Revolve in Asheville. That's a community gallery. And the show is officially up today, July 18th, till
Congratulations.
thank you, till August 15th. It's going to be up, and it's disabled people from all over the world that are writers and artists, and all of that, all the writing and all the art is up on the walls, and it looks great. I'm just so excited because I just hung it yesterday. So I'm off, I'm coming off the excitement of seeing it up after months of like seeing everything on a computer. It's actually up on a wall on a gallery now, and it looks amazing. And we're going to have a reception on July 31st, which was the day the ADA was
Mhm.
signed into law. So that's a celebration of the signing of the ADA. We're going to have a reception at the Revolve Gallery if you live in Asheville. But if you don't live in Asheville, we're also going to have an online reception for people all over the world to come and enjoy and take part of live, but it will also be up on the YouTube channel, the recorded version. So you could go look at it later if you couldn't, if that time frame doesn't work for you. It's there for you to see anytime you want. So yeah, and yeah, donate money, time, your time to watch all these things, and support me however you can to spread the word of how disabled people are people.
Priya, you sound so accomplished. I celebrate that. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. I don't feel accomplished, but I thank you for saying that to me. And yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm so happy you're doing this, and it's awesome. Thank you for doing it.
Have a good rest of your day.
You too.